Thank you. Thank you. So it's good to see everybody, but I'm going to take my glasses off now, so I won't be able to see you anymore. It's just one of those things. Don't like to talk with my glasses on. Last year, I was told I need to wear them all the time, so I take that as wear them when I'm driving or at a kid's sporting event. So thank you, Josh, for providing such a lead-in for DevOps Starts with Knowing Your Numbers. This talk came about because I failed at least half a dozen efforts to convince the leadership team at my organization that DevOps was worth doing. I mean, I am banging my head against the wall. Like, why don't they understand? Just show of hands, how many of you have been so frustrated with the VP? Just doesn't get it, right? Doesn't get it. All right, that's what this talk is about, right? Because they don't get it. They don't get it. So today I'm going to offer a model that's going to help you speak their language a little bit better. So with that, you don't need to read this. Just look at it. Just take it in. This is why they don't get it. They can't read that. That's too much words. What is the definition of DevOps, right? That's too much. It's not speaking their language. The other challenge with DevOps is it's an inside-out view, right? It's what matters to us. So I'm going to offer I don't even know if I made a slide. Oh, I did. I'm going to offer a slightly different definition for what DevOps is. If you want to relate to your VP and you want to get the funding you need to go get the tools that our sponsors are offering, you need to explain to them that DevOps is a deliberate automation and compression of the software delivery supply chain, right? It's about making this whole process go faster. So there's three things I want everybody to walk away with today. So let me stand here so I can read my thing. So the first thing I want you to know is that I can't see without my glasses. I want you to know your risk factors. I want you to understand your risk factors with getting DevOps to take off. The second thing is I want to arm you all with 5 key questions to ask whenever you're trying to launch a DevOps initiative. And the last thing is leave you with 7 simple steps. So you might say that's a really peculiar 3 takeaways, but I borrowed these takeaways or derived them from the American Heart Association. So have anybody do that thing where you get your blood drawn at work once a year and then you get money deposited into your healthcare savings account? Yeah, that Know Your Numbers thing. My good friend chairs the local Go Red for Women organization. So Know Your Numbers is a program that was put together by the American Heart Association and Macy's to help us raise our awareness of our risk of heart disease. And what they want us to do is understand our factors that are in our control and outside of our control. When I was at the luncheon last year, because my friend organized this, so I have to go and sponsor it. When I was at the luncheon, it dawned on me that this model could actually apply to DevOps, and it could help us get our VPs who just don't get it to get it. I know it works because when I started doing Know Your Numbers, I started it 25 years ago. So I put them in a spreadsheet and started tracking them and trending them over time because I love data and I love analytics. And 3 years in a row, I got some numbers that didn't make sense to me, that I didn't like. And it turned out I was diabetic. And just from trending it. And so I made some major life changes and it's not an issue anymore. So what I want to do is let's talk about risk factors. So the American Heart Association says we need to know what's in our control and what's out of our control. In our control are, let's talk about what's out of our control, right? We can't control our age. We can't control our heredity. We can't control our race or previous conditions. But what we can control, a lot of things actually that Josh pointed out in his slide, there are things we can control and manage. We can decide whether or not we smoke or drink. We exercise, and we should all be moving a little, not just because Josh told us to. So when we talk about DevOps, we can control how we communicate with other teams. We can control how we manage. We can control whether or not we have a cohesive, interoperable tool chain. But we can't control what other companies are doing. We can't control Moore's Law, right? We can't control trends in technology. We can't control what's happening to our customers, but we can control how we work together. DevOps is a compression and automation of the software delivery supply chain. So that means respecting people along the supply chain and worrying about things that matter and taking action. I was working with a team a few weeks ago, and we were talking about what's getting in your way, right? They did this brainstorming, and everybody around the room puts it down on a bunch of Post-it notes, everything that's getting in the way. Like, these guys don't understand. I don't have this. There's not enough time. We're getting our stuff too late. Everybody puts everything they need on Post-it notes. We put them up on the wall, and then we had two big sticky Post-its. The big ones. And then we had everybody go around the room, and we went through each of them. And one of those big Post-its said, what's in our control? And one of them says, what's out of our control? And we took the little Post-its and stuck them on the sign that made sense. And everything that we said, this is not in our control, we relabeled it. It is what it is. My sister hates that expression, so I kind of used it just to annoy her, because I am, still somebody's little sister. Even though I have kids who are taller than me, I'm still someone's little sister. So I do things to annoy other people. So we put this sign up there. We said it is what it is. No one was allowed to talk about it anymore. Just stop talking about it. It doesn't matter. We can't do anything about it. This is key to starting DevOps and knowing your numbers, is knowing what you can control and what you can't. So back to the American Heart Association, they gave us 5 key numbers, like our blood pressure, all that stuff. I want to offer you 5 key questions you can ask on whether or not your DevOps initiative or your effort to advance and drive impact from your DevOps is worth it. The first thing is, you have to know what matters most to the business, right? You have to know the priority of your project. You have to know the criticality of your assets. Let me give you a really specific example. Anybody in here friends with your business continuity team? Right? These are great guys. They have categorized our assets so we know how important they are. We know which ones have to be recovered first. We know which ones have reasonable downtimes, which we know their service levels. These are great. You need to know that, because if you're fighting if you are putting your reputation on the line and going to town fighting for something, it better be something that's important to the business, not something that's just important to you. Know if it is what it is, or if it's something you should fight for. The next thing is, this is simple, and gosh, I wish I'd understood this early in my career, but there's only 4 reasons we ever do projects. We do projects first to grow the business, right? Get more demand, get more activity. The second reason we do projects is to protect or enhance our brand, right? It's the right thing to do. It's where we're going. The third reason we do projects is to reduce risk. And the fourth is to reduce cost. And I put that as a distant fourth. When you are proposing bringing DevOps practices or accelerating, and you're trying to fight for funding and get priority, talk to these. Talk about how this method is going to help you increase traffic to your site. It's going to increase throughput. It's going to help you grow the business. Talk about how it's going to improve the usability and the cooperation. And let's say you have, vendor-vendor relationships. This could protect your brand, and it could help people want to do business with you. And finally, talk about, and I love this one for DevOps, it reduces risk, right? It eliminates manual entry. It eliminates points of failure. So talk about how DevOps helps us reduce risk. Don't run around talking about how it helps us reduce cost, because that's short-lived. There's 2 things that cost a lot. People and buildings, right? Your physical building you're in is kind of pricey. But when we do DevOps, we're not doing it to eliminate roles. We're doing it to increase capacity. This is the compression and automation of the software delivery supply chain. We want to make more room to do the things that help us grow the business, protect the brand, and reduce risk, right? Yeah. Okay. So the third thing you need to ask yourself is, do I have the right people working on the right thing at the right time? Now, you may or may not have control of it depending on your role, but if you're a manager, make sure that you're asking people to support your initiative who want to be a part of it. When first time I had a really big team, it was early on in Agile. It was probably maybe like 2006, 2007, and we're just getting used to it. And hands down, best analyst on my team. I come over to her desk. I'm like, Mary, you in? She says to me, nah, I've been doing it 25 years this way, and I'm not ready to do something new. I'm like, come on, Mary, you're our best. We can't do it without you. She said, well, you're going to have to, because I'm not interested. All right, that was totally valid. So we got somebody who maybe wasn't as good as Mary at this role, but she was interested in doing it. So when you are promoting your DevOps initiatives or building your team or trying to get people to work together, work with the people who want to work together. Work with the people who are ready for it. Some people are early adopters. Some people are laggards. Some people are followers. They're all valid places to be, but don't ask somebody to be something they don't want to be. Right? And we all, at any given time, have stuff going on, right? Whether it's a new baby or an aging parent, or we're just buying a first house, or maybe our air conditioning went out and we live in North Carolina and it can get really hot. There are things that distract us. So be aware of who's got, emotional capacity to invest in this transition and this transformation. And I pulled this slide from something I did a long, long time ago with a quality team. And, every project in the world follows a bell curve. And there's two things to note is that, I wonder if this has a pointer. But when you get to the peak of development, you've peaked out on your resources and your time. When we're promoting DevOps, don't fight battles that are over and not worth fighting. Look for the bottlenecks. Anything you can do that lets you shift left back before you've expended all the resources in the project and before you've spent a lot of time on it, those are the things to automate. Putting a lot of pressure on alleviating non-bottlenecks, it's not really worth it. And a team I was working with maybe 2 years ago, and they were just thrilled about some automation they'd put in place and the way they were able to increase the number of builds they did in a day. But it had no impact on the rate of changes making it into production, right? It didn't help them grow the business. It didn't help them increase throughput. It didn't help them reduce risk. They were just getting more builds in a day. And the answer is, so what? So the last question is the fourth question is you have to talk about the so what. All right. And then the last piece. I am amazed. I've spoken with a lot of folks in the DevOps community. Folks are associating tech debt as bugs in production, known bugs. Tech debt's so much more than that, you guys. When you're speaking to your VPs, tech debt is about not only pushing known problems to production, but using tools and techniques that are not go forward. It is, let's say you're all .NET and you knowingly put in something. I'm a long time ago programmer, so let's implement a new system that's Fortran based. That's tech debt, right? Don't use tools and technologies that nobody's going to be able to support, that aren't part of your reference architecture, that aren't the direction you want to go. Don't invest in the past, invest in the future, right? Yes, of course. All right. So how am I doing? All right. This is important. These questions make sense, right? 5 questions. I'm going to go back through them. What's most important to the business? How does it relate to growing the business, protecting the brand, reducing risk, reducing cost? Do you have the right people working on the right projects at the right time? Are you working on the long pole in the tent? Am I out of range? No. So let me tell another quick long pole in the tent story. A long time ago, when I first got into project management, before I ever scoped or sized a project, the first thing I did was order equipment. I would order all the equipment for the dev and test environments. Again, this is a long time ago. This is probably a lot of you weren't working yet. But I'd order all the equipment because I knew it would take 4 to 12 weeks to come in. It would be manually configured. Every configuration would be wrong, and it was a long pole in the tent. So when VMware and things like that came out, immediately the longest pole in the tent was eliminated. So when you are introducing DevOps techniques and strategies, focus on the long pole in the tent. And the last one, again, is don't use technologies that you're trying to get away from. That's as much tech debt as bugs that never should have been pushed to production. Make sense? All right, so 7 simple steps. So the American Heart Association gives us these wonderful steps. Once they tell us these are your risk factors, this is what's in your control, this is what's out of your control. Here are the things you can do to reduce risk. Now, I boil them down to eating oatmeal and meditating. Absolutely the 2 best things you can do. I try to do them every day. They go a little more into depth, right? So step number 1, manage your blood pressure, control your cholesterol, reduce your blood sugar, get active, eat better, lose weight, stop smoking. It's all pretty obvious. But when we're doing DevOps, how do we make DevOps operational? Just show of hands out there, how many people are really comfortable with the impact and value of their DevOps and it's getting a lot of traction in their organization? Okay, we want to see more hands. The reason DevOps is so important right now, you guys, is because of digital transformation. We are all familiar with the retail apocalypse of 2017 and 2018. It's when stores and brands and things that we have known our entire lives went away because people were now focusing more on ordering whatever they needed online. So not having that same in-store experience. So one retail chain after another has started to fold. Retail is not the only industry that's susceptible to a digital apocalypse. Most of our industries are. We all work for companies and with people who are contributors to their community, right? They're caregivers to kids and to parents, and they're volunteers. They're active in their communities and their circles. And in order to do that, they're counting on jobs. They're counting on their companies evolving. As stewards of DevOps, we play a really significant role in this. So I want to offer this model, these 7 steps you can take to help drive the traction of your DevOps initiatives and help you focus a lot on the outside-in view. Have anybody taken part in like design thinking classes? Anybody done design thinking? You hear that buzzword? Yeah, and you go there and you're like, that's so obvious. I can't believe people are paid for design thinking. Has anybody thought that? Come on, I mean, it's some obvious stuff. But guess what? Take a design thinking class. Do a 1-hour webinar on design thinking. Because what you'll do is discover that these basic notions of design thinking you can bring to DevOps. DevOps itself, the name, I call it inside out. We're looking at how we do work and how cool it is and how sexy and how efficient it is. Outside in views that we learn from design thinking talk about why it matters. So as you're putting in your 7 simple steps, keep in mind that you've got to talk about the so what with DevOps. So the first thing to remove obstacles, I call them DevObstacles. I thought that was funny. And then it turned out I wasn't the first to coin it. Somebody else had, maybe in like 2009, but it never caught on. It should catch on, though I'm maybe, Josh, you're more of an influencer than me. Could you do something to help DevOpsicles? Yes, thank you. Okay, Josh is going to be the start the trend around DevOpsicles. We got to knock them out of the way, you guys. So the number one step in removing DevOpsicles is to know the health of your production environment. When you are talking about DevOps, you need to start speaking in terms of how your DevOps efforts have affected production. The 4 ways, right? How are they helping increase the throughput to grow your business? How are they helping increase the traffic and the response and favorable responses to protect your brand, right? And how are they helping you reduce risk? Once you get that into control, and you guys start talking about this every month, it's 5 to 8 minutes at a team meeting where you're talking about how DevOps has done this. Okay, the next thing we got to do is make sure that we're prioritizing what matters most. And I'm going to stand over here, you guys, because I did take my glasses off and it is easier to see this on this side. So prioritizing your projects. Are you working on what matters most? Are you applying your DevOps techniques and principles to the things your customers care about? If you're just practicing and doing something new you've never done before, don't do it on the number one most visible project in the company. Do it on like the 3 or 4. Enough that it still gets attention, but not so much that you're going to be right in that danger zone, your failure danger zone, your Apollo 13. I can't remember what it was called. Your radius of impact. Don't go where your radius of impact is gigantic, but stay a little closer to core. The third thing to do with DevOps is get a pulse. Make sure you've got people working on it who want to be working on it. Build a community of practice where people who have an opinion or want to be involved can be involved. Build a community where you can have healthy debate, but don't ask the people like Mary who don't want to be a part of it. Don't ask them to be a part of it. Let them come when they're ready. Who has teenagers? Anybody? You ever try to make a teenager do something they don't want to do? It's pretty bad. I got 2 teenage daughters, and I have learned to say as little as possible. It does make you a better leader and a better manager when you learn, you can't control teenagers or cats. So it's just letting all that stuff go. The 4th thing is method. The worst thing you can do with DevOps is use every method, right? You can't be waterfall, Scrum, Agile, Kanban. They're all good. They all have merit. Pick 1 or 2 of them and stick with it. Get really good at it. So you're working on the right projects. You start creating some repeatable patterns. They're not all brand new every time. When you get that going, then start to reduce your tech debt. Start talking about the junk you've moved out there. Maybe your tech debt is that you're doing 5 different project delivery methods. Just pick 1 or 2. A couple's fine. Narrow it down. Reduce your tech debt. As we do that, and this is the hard part of any talk, is when I say engage everyone. When I first started, when I got out of college, I took a job with one of consulting firms, and I was heads down, hardcore developer turned architect. I was everything technical I could be, and I loved it. On the other side of the country, my someday to be husband was working at a reservation desk at a ski resort, right? So he could ski by day, take hotel reservations by night. And I am coding, 12 hours a day, taking technical classes, just really learning everything I possibly could about technology. Fast forward, 8-9 years, and I decided I wanted to move into management and leadership. And I'd gotten an MBA, and I get my first big project. And I was, because like any technology person, I'm like, I can do that so much better. And so I get this, and I get this colossal project, and I had my first all team conference call, and my then boyfriend overheard it. He was working from home. He was no longer a reservation desk person. He'd come back to Cleveland, Ohio, which I'm sure you can hear it in my voice, the Cleveland. He came back and he overheard this conference call, and I got off the call and I was jazzed because we had done it, right? I had this person working on that and that person working on that. I'm like, victory! This is awesome. Almost as good as Josh spreading dev obstacles around. I was so pumped. And at the end of the call, my husband walks up to me and he goes, I never want to work for you. I'm like, what? What do you mean? I mean, he took the wind out of my sails, you guys. And he says to me, are you the only one in the room who went to college? I'm like, no. He said, are you the only one getting paid? I'm like, no. And he says, are you the only one who cares? No. And then he says, well, why did you make all the decisions? And I said, because I'm the boss, right? That's my job. That's my name on the line. He's like, that's not your job. It's everyone's job. When you're the boss, it's your job to create an environment where they all feel like they can contribute, and you shut everyone down, and I'd never want to work for you. I was stunned. I was stunned. It really hurt because I was so proud of what I'd done, and I had worked so hard, and I was so technical and climbed my way up there, and he would never want to work for me. Guys, so I had to take a good long look, and it changed. It was really transformative in my career, and I hope this helps you as you try to transform with DevOps, but you don't have all the answers, and your way isn't the only the right way. And when you want to have a really successful DevOps initiative and you're talking about the numbers, you're using relevant metrics, everyone has to be a part of it. Ask their opinion, right? Get them all in this monthly ops review. Sit down where you talk about it. How has DevOps helped our production environment? Are we doing it on the most important projects, right? Do we have the right people? Is there somebody who wants to come in and be a part of this? Are we creating a community of practice where people can contribute? Are we getting better at it? Have we learned enough that we need to turn around and adopt and adapt our project delivery methods? So what? Are we getting junk out of the environment that cost us a bunch that we can report on to our leadership team? When we did X, we invested $20,000 in X. We were able to remove 50 latent defects and stuff from our production environment. And really, we talk about why it matters. And then we grow this community of practice, right? We engage everyone. So with that, I offer this, just the way I put it is in a grid, right? Every month, you sit and talk about this stuff. You sit around, you have your ops review with everyone who cares about DevOps, because when you do this, you move the needle with DevOps. You prevent the digital apocalypse from hurting your organization. You secure your positions, and you make it a better environment for everyone to work together. DevOps is about creating capacity. Now, I don't have all the answers. This is really about starting a conversation. And I'd invite all of you, as you go back to your meetups, and have conversations about this. How can we do these 7 steps? Which ones make sense, which don't make sense? Engage each other in this conversation, because as a community, we have an obligation to get better about DevOps, because it's what creates opportunity for us, for our kids, for my teenage daughters who have to come off the payroll. They have to. I can't take the eye rolling anymore. So please, I've got some more articles on this. Feel free to read them. Ask me questions. You can find me on Twitter at Ann Hungate. And LinkedIn also, Ann Hungate. I'm extremely creative like that. There aren't a lot of Ann Hungate. So I invite you all to just participate in the conversation, and thank you.